doing mite counts. August is right around the corner. We need to make sure the hives are clean of varroa mites going into winter. And here, coming up very soon, the queens will shift gears and reduce their egg laying in the summer nest. The bulk of the bees will die and the nest will shrink, and they'll start preparing for winter time. So with that being said, the bees that she'll be laying and raising will be long haul bees. They'll be the bees that carry the nest over winter. So we've got to make sure that when that brood is being cared for and fed and raised, that there are no varroa mites, or at least a very low count of varroa mites, so that we can manage it. Keep the viral load very low going into winter. Keep them healthy. You don't want sick bees going into winter. When it gets cold and wet, they ain't gonna make it. So what we do is we basically sacrifice a few many. So I've got some things set up here, and I'm going to basically take nurse bees. Those are the bees that are tending directly to the open brood, which is where they enter the cells before the cells are capped, and they feed on the larvae and pupae as they're raised. So we're going to take the bees that are on the open brood, shake them into here. I'm going to take basically a half cup, and I'm going to put them in there, which is alcohol, and yes, they will die. However, I'll twist that cap, shake them, and through the strainer there, the varroa mites, if any, will fall to the bottom, and I can count, divide by 3, and that gives me a ratio of how many mites per 100 bees I have. And of course, we don't want high mite counts. If we do, we need to treat. I've already had a couple of zeros. Now I know you can't see this through the screen, but that frame is just glistening with young larvae being fed, right? Very important that you do not get the queen. If you've got some time and you've got somebody helping you, isolate the queen just to make sure. However, I'm double checking, triple and quadruple checking that I do not have the queen in here. She's not on this frame, so I will shake them into there. The nurse bees will not fly, they'll stay in there. The foragers that were on, like this other side, storing, delivering, depositing nectar, they'll fly out. So, got another frame here. Yeah, that's just eggs on that one. Alright, no queen. Shake them off. I'll put the hive back together here. That gives the foragers a chance to leave. I need to come back later on today and pull these supers. Alright, so now I'm going to double check again, make sure the queen is not in here. Because if the queen gets into this alcohol wash here, she'll be dead. And I have done it before. Get me a big scoop here. Put them right in. Now, you want to twist this for a couple minutes. What that does is that dislodges the mite from the bee, and they'll fall down into the bottom. So all this is happening. Yep, wrong side. They'll find their way back up into the colony. Like I said, those are nurse bees. Those are the youngest bees in the colony. Their job is to feed the open brood and they have not been outside the nest yet, and they haven't learned to fly, so they crawl. And I'm done with this part. So what I did was I shook this for a couple minutes, and then I let it sit for a couple minutes, and then I pop it up and I look at it from the bottom. And if you can see this through the screen on the veil here, there's one and there's two mites. That's a stinger, that's a stinger, and this is just, you know, debris that was on the bees. But there's a varroa mite, there's a varroa mite. Okay, so I've got approximately 300 bees inside of here. So what you do is you divide that by 3, and that gives you basically less than 1 per 100 bees. So that's acceptable. I'm still going to treat, but that gives me an idea how many mites are inside these colonies. There's another one. Looks like 3 mites. So what I'll do is I'll take this marker and I'll write today's date. I believe today is July 26th. And I'll just put 0.6. All right. Now with the capped brood in the colony, when the brood emerges, that number of course will rise because mites will exit the cell. So I'll come back in a few days and I'll do another one, another, you know, count on this colony. I won't test every colony. I'll test maybe every third, fourth one, but that'll give me a pretty good idea of, you know, what this yard is like, because every yard will be a little bit different. So anyway, then I'll come back and treat. And the reason it's important to test is because when you put your treatments on, you got to come back and test after you've had your treatments on, right? But you won't know if your treatments are working if you don't know what your mite counts were to start with. And just for the curious ones, a half a cup of bees supposedly equals 300 bees. And I mean, I know it doesn't look like much when you scoop a half a cup of them up, but I separated 100 out in groups of 10. So, I mean, that's what's left. So there's probably actually a little over 300.